Hello and welcome to the Sales Report, where we will learn from alumni of one of the top sales programs and how they've found success in their career and in their life. Michigan State University graduates will discuss their professional journeys, the skills, knowledge, and habits required to be top performers. The Michigan State Sales Leadership minor leverages the strength of two nationally ranked colleges, the Broad College of Business and the College of Communication Arts and Sciences. I'm your host, Sydney DeHorn, and today we have Zach Doerr. Welcome, Zach. We are very excited to have you on. And just so you know, the goal of this podcast is really to, of course, highlight yourself and highlight the success of our MSU Sales Leadership minor alumni, a little bit of background on Zach, and then we'll dive into some of his career journeys that he's had. Zach, you graduated from MSU in 2015 with a marketing degree in sales communications, and your current role is a commercial business manager at Ford. We're excited to have you on. We're excited to hear more about your position at Ford and the positions that you have held. But my first question, and I do think that this is very important because I will say I'm a Ford fan. What is your favorite car or SUV from Ford?
That is such a hard question because I feel like I'd love to drive something new every week. Right now in my driveway, I have a Maverick that is, I think, one of the most unique cars that you can go out and buy. It's a small pickup truck that drives pretty sporty. It drives because it's not built in a frame. So it drives kind of more like a small SUV or a small car, but it gets 45 miles a gallon and it's fun to drive and very useful. So everyone loves the Bronco right now, so I hate to take the easy way out, but you really can't beat like a Bronco Raptor. So,
what are your opinions? Do you like the ones that are lifted or the ones that are lower to the ground?
I mean, if it's Bronco, you got to go lifted all the way. So how would I jump in? I graduated in 2015 from MSU and went to work for Ford a few months after I graduated. I've been with Ford for over 6 years now. I've had 7 different positions with Ford. Now, granted, all of those 7 positions have been different factory rep positions in even the same region, which is not unusual, but unique that I've got to spend 6 years out in the field with the sales teams in the factory rep positions with Ford. Ford's obviously a big company. There's probably in total several hundred factory rep positions that are scattered throughout the country, even some abroad, that are the type of role is it's a consultative selling role where in some senses I sell a program or an idea, or I sell them on signing up for something. And by them, I should say I am working with independent franchised dealerships that have the Ford Oval on the front. They're owned by typically a local business person. And we, as a representative of Ford Motor Company from Detroit, Michigan, live locally. So I live here in the Washington, D.C. area, and I visit stores in the whole state of Maryland, the whole state of Delaware, and the whole state of Virginia. And if they need things from Ford, they contact me or one of my factory rep counterparts. And so we work with them, help them out. But we also, the main piece of what I do is to provide them information and consultation on how to grow their business, because those dealerships aren't owned by Ford Motor Company. They are owned by someone locally that has made a multi-million-dollar investment in the building and the advertising and what it takes to run a small business. So,
can you share a little bit more about that experience? And every single week, are you going out to a new location within those states that you own? And then in terms of consulting to make that branch better, what is it that you tell them, or what is it that you go through every time that you meet with them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have our region split up into 3 different zones. And when I first came in, I had the rural Virginia zone. So in a given month for me, I had 15 stores. I think they've changed it a little bit, so now it's closer to 30. But in a week, Monday probably is your home office day. You're setting up your week, maybe a little bit of this on Friday too. You're probably working either out of your office or the regional office, which is within 30 minutes of where most of us live here in DC. And then during the week, I would travel to the stores in my zone. So out of my 7 positions, some of those positions were identical, just in different zones. So increasing responsibility, larger dealer sizes. So I started in rural Virginia with Roanoke, Lynchburg, Charlottesville, kind of some parts of Richmond, Virginia. And then I moved up eventually to the Metro DC stores, the stores in Northern Virginia, the Metro side of Maryland, Metro Baltimore, stores that are triple, quadruple, 5, 6 times the size of these rural stores. They do a lot more throughput, a lot more responsibility, a lot more questions, and a lot more chance to make an impact on the sales volumes for Ford at these larger stores. So that's kind of my career path: is we'll start with the small stores, move up to the large stores in a consultative selling role, where on Monday I was typically pulling a bunch of sales reports, sales registration data that I have access to. I'd print off a lot of stuff, print off a lot of reports, and then I would walk into the dealerships prepared to give them advice. Usually it's more ask some questions to get them thinking about the processes at their store so that they could be more effective when selling Ford cars and trucks.
So was that more of the process on the back end, making sure that everything is going well within their stores, or was it more of the actual conversations they were having with people trying to purchase cars?
Some of both. So here's an example: is once a month, I would sit down with, we had a dealer group that owned 3 of the largest stores. They had owned 4 now, Jim Coons Automotive. And I would go sit in front of the owner, his CEO of his management company that kind of oversaw the dealerships, and then the vice president of sales and the 3 general managers from the 3 Ford stores. And we would talk about everything from the upcoming incentives for them to help understand how they should spend their marketing dollars for their dealerships. So they would go back to their TV stations that they worked with and say, hey, Zach from Ford told us that they're going to do 0 for 72 this month. We want to run TV ads talking about Ford's 0 for 72 incentive. Then we would talk about some sales processes. So sometimes Ford would come out with a new program. Hey, we have an app now. This was the big thing when I was starting in 2016. We have this app called Ford Pass that a customer should download before they leave the dealership. You need to add to the pay plan of all the sales consultants at the dealership that they get a bonus amount of money if they activate this. And usually they would take this back to the dealership and tell all the sales consultants, listen, Ford's got this new app. You need to activate it with customers. If you don't, we're going to maybe withhold some of your pay, or we'll pay you more for doing it. Some of it was strategic decisions like marketing, and some of it was sales process items. It was all over the place. And at the end of the day too, some of the positions I've been in, I actually sell them cars. So, as a wholesale rep, I would go in and sit down with them and say, you got 47 Fusions right now. Your sales forecast for the next 4 months is going to be 10, 10, and 10. That leaves you with 7 at the end of 4 months. You need to order 15 more so you have enough stock going into the next month. So a lot of Excel spreadsheets, printing those off, bringing them into the dealership with me, and getting them to buy more Ford vehicles, because that's what kept the factories running for Ford. So.
Can you share a little bit about the importance of coming to a meeting prepared and having all the right facts, and why that matters for a sales position, especially when, for you, as an example, Zach, you're going in with all the facts and you're trying to teach the folks that you're meeting with. It's not going in, and of course you're probably discovering some things, but if you've already got all that data, can you just share a little bit about that experience and how you go about the prepping, and then and how you come prepared to meet with a client, no matter who it is, or customer, or anyone within the dealer?
When I go into a meeting with either it be the owner of the dealership, the general manager, the kind of the top sales managers, or even a sales consultant, when I walk in as a factory rep on behalf of Ford in my suit and tie, with my briefcase that's got all the papers I'm bringing in, they see me as Ford Motor Company. I'm usually one of a handful of people that they see that works for Ford, even though that they sell often $100 million worth of Ford inventory a year. And to the people in the community, this dealership is Ford. But the reality is they're Coons Ford of Sterling, Virginia, and I am Ford Motor Company. I work work for Ford Motor Company. So they need what I say to be accurate. And when I say things, they trust it's accurate because they are going to pass it on to their customers. And, they have relationships with their customers that ride on the information that I give them as a factory rep in this kind of consultative role. That's why I think it is important to prepare. And I do a lot of training myself to be up to date on Ford programs, to understand the Ford websites that these staff at the dealerships that I consult for work in every day, because it helps me help them more.
That makes a lot of sense. Can you share one of your favorite meetings you've ever had, or like one of your favorite stories that you've had while being at Ford? I know you said you've been there for quite a while and you've held many different positions. So can you share one of your favorite experiences you've had there?
Oh, there's so many memorable ones, but the one that comes to mind is I was at a small store in Blacksburg, Virginia, which is down by Roanoke and way in Southwest Virginia, the mountains. And I'm meeting with the owner of the store. And I was there for about 2 hours, which is a normal meeting. And toward the end of the meeting, the athletic director for Virginia Tech Hokies walks in because
No way.
the dealer owner had a relationship with the athletic director. They'd been a dealership for a long time, and it had him in a demo car. So the athletic director was driving around a kind of a dealer-owned car, just as a favor. And he drops off a handful of field passes for the Hokies football game that evening. And the dealer looks at me and says, "You want to go stand on the field behind the bench for the Hokies game tonight?" And I think it was a Thursday evening or a Friday evening game. So I stayed the night in Blacksburg instead of coming home to Virginia. And I stood both on the field for the Hokies running out, watched them beat, I think it was University of Miami, Florida. And we also had box seats too. So we went back and forth between our suite and the field. So, I had lots of cool experiences like that, but that was the first one that comes to mind.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really, really good story. I'm sure you'll be able to tell that for a long time. So I did a little research on you before we met today, and I'm very curious about one of your experiences. So I wanted to bring it up and ask you a few questions. So I saw on your LinkedIn that you worked for MSU Concessions. And I saw you were awarded the #1 seller every single game for, I believe it's water bottles, in 2011, 2012, 2013, and 2014 out of 40 plus vendors. Is that the case? Water bottles,
Yeah.
or everything?
Well, and this is a great lead into one of the things I really wanted to talk about, which was work experience, and even relevant work experience, because anyone that's been around the sales communication specialization will know, or minor, it was a specialization when I was around, will know that Jen Rumler talks about how important internships are. And while this was not an internship, this was my first sales job. I started 2011, it was my first year of high school. And then every year of high school and every year of college, I worked in this commission sales job. And it's one of the only commission sales jobs I've had where they give you a tray of 28 water bottles and you head out into the stands and you start hawking your water bottles, or when it's cold, it was hot chocolate. And they gave you 10% of everything you sold. I think I was 14 when I started. The first game I did really, really well. The second or third game, out of the 40 guys that they have do it, for the whole Spartan Stadium arena in any given game, I was first. And I remember this because there was always a $25 bonus for being first. I started making really good money. 10%, the bottles were $3.50. So I was making 35 cents a bottle. There was a point where I was averaging probably $350 to $400 a game. So for 3 to 4 hours of work as a 15, 16, 17-year-old, by the time I got to MSU, I said, I don't even necessarily want to lose out on this opportunity and sit in the student section. So I only did once my whole time at MSU because I was making almost $400 a game selling water in this commission job where I beat everyone else by such a huge margin that it made me a lot of money and kind of helped pay my way through school too.
I have to know, I've been to hundreds of football games. What was your way? Like, what were your tips? What did you do differently that no one else was doing?
Be fast, be loud, and be big. So, if I could be visible and catch people's eye and move up and down the stairs. Oh my goodness, I climbed more stairs than I have my entire life in Spartan Stadium doing that job. But I had, and I'll move into some other work experience that I had when I was at school too, because that was my very first sales job. And to be honest, that was one of the things that inspired me to say when I got to MSU at 18 to look into a sales job, because I'd had this, a silly water bottle concessions job, but it was a commission sales job.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
did well. And people said, Zach, you should go into sales. So I got to MSU. I joined the program. And Jen has always said internships, internships, internships. This is something you have to graduate from the minor. But because my dad has worked for the business college at MSU for many years too, it's something that I was also getting beat into my head at home, is that internships are great. If you want to get a good job, you should go get some relevant internship. So as a freshman, I swear I talked to everybody because I just wanted to find a company that would hire a freshman as an intern. And eventually I did. I worked for Southwestern Advantage, which was another company that did door-to-door book sales during the summer, a commission job, 6 days a week, all day long. And I did okay, but more importantly, I learned a lot about sales. I learned a lot about commission jobs, especially. I learned a lot about how, the psychology of sales in that
Mhm.
job too. It really got me motivated to get more work experience. I had, so that was after my freshman year. After my sophomore year, I had a summer internship for Kellogg. After my junior year, I had a summer internship for Bell Helicopter, because that was kind of my dream career, was doing aviation sales. And it didn't work out for other reasons, but I ended up coming back to Ford to do automotive sales after my senior year for my full-time job. My last kind of relevant work experience was I had an internship for Kristen St. Marie at the executive programs with the Broad College of Business that they run out of the Henry Center, where
Mhm.
I helped out for a couple semesters while I was in school. So I had 4 relevant sales internships by the time I graduated. And I think that really helped me stand out too when I was looking for
Yeah.
full-time jobs or even other internships.
And I know that, getting experience again, like you said, is one of the most important things that they tell us we need when we join the sales minor. Other than that, what was the most beneficial piece to the program? And also, this is kind of an add-on to what you just told us, but how did you stand out when you of course you had 4 internships. How did you even get an internship as a freshman? Like, share a little bit more about that experience.
Getting an internship as a freshman is difficult. I remember going
Mhm.
from booth to booth at career fairs and being told, come back and talk to us when you're a junior. We're not hiring
Exactly.
freshmen. But I think it was just the sheer volume of people I asked. I eventually found a company, Southwest Advantage, Aaron Schaefer, that said, I will hire anyone any year. And that's kind of the way the program is set up too, where they're training you throughout the internship in sales. So it's not quite as a traditional internship. Again, you're doing door-to-door book sales.
Mhm.
But again, really thankful I did it, learned a ton. And so, I kind of, as a freshman, I definitely had a willingness to accept anything. And I asked a lot. I asked a lot of people, tried to show that I was really interested. And I went back to a lot of the people that I talked to as a freshman or a sophomore. I went back to them the next year or my junior year or my senior year to connect with them again and interview again for either a junior internship or a full-time job.
And other than, joining the sales minor, I know right before we joined this call, you were sharing a little bit about how you had, I think, 5 different sales competitions under your belt by the time you graduated. Is that right?
Yeah. So, and that was one of the things that I certainly what favorite memories from the sales specialization, and one of the things that consumed a lot of my time and hours in the sales specialization. But again, just loved it. So I did the all MSU sales competition 3 years, went to nationals 2 of those 3 years, both my sophomore year as an alternate and then my junior year as a competitor. And I have sitting in my office now still the quarterfinalist plaque from the year that I went to Kennesaw State and
Awesome.
was a quarterfinalist there. I love those competitions. I love the behind the scenes prep to get ready for game day, to
Mhm.
get excited about preparing each and every one of the sections of the sales pitch. I love the competitive atmosphere. I loved going to the national competition, especially, but even the All MSU competition, the buzz of everyone being excited
Oh
about
my
giving their
gosh, yeah.
presentations. And And I also participated in the now defunct NIU, Northern Illinois University, sales decathlon. It was 10 different sales events that you had to do
Um,
in person, everything from kind of a normal sales pitch to an elevator pitch in an actual elevator, which was pretty cool. And phone call follow up, and I actually took second place in that, and it was really cool. I came home with a big check, a couple $1,000 to help pay my tuition that year too. So some really fond memories from competitions stemming from the minor.
I'd say the sales competitions were my favorite as well, especially all MSU. It's just so good to be selling a product that is part of our corporate sponsorship, and then being with all your peers, and being with all the folks from MSU, especially competing at MSU. So I very much agree with you there. As we round this out, I think that there is a lot that those who are listening right now can learn from what you've shared. But if you had one piece of advice for those who are listening, what would that piece of advice be if they are, let's just say, still in college looking for an internship, or if they've already accepted a full-time role and they're going into their first sales position?
I would say if you can, do something that you're passionate about. And even if you don't necessarily feel like you're doing something that you're passionate about at the moment, don't give up. And let me tell a story to illustrate this.
Okay.
My internship that I had after my sophomore year was not what I thought it was going to be. It ended up being more of, I thought it was a sales internship. It felt like more of a merchandising internship, just putting stuff on shelves. I didn't have a great supervisory team. And there was a misunderstanding too, that I felt like I got blamed for something that I really didn't think was my fault. Had kind of a come to Jesus meeting as an internship. And I remember as a 19-year-old getting called into the room of the local vice president, and he's really in my face, and remember starting breaking down crying. And I left this meeting and I called Jem Rumler and said, do I have to finish this internship to get credit for it? Because this is not going really well. It is really a struggle.
Yeah.
And she said, you know what? Sometimes there's going to be moments in life where you have to show up and shut up. Just come to work, do what you're expected to do to the best of your ability, and suffer through the hard times. And I've had some other moments like that too. Even what I thought was going to be my dream job didn't pan out. I didn't get the offer that I thought for sure I had in the bag at the end of the year. So I had to pivot from what I thought was going to be my dream job to something that I think to now in hindsight is even a better fit than working in aviation sales like I thought I was going to. So kind of a moment of I really pursued what I thought I wanted to do. It didn't work out, had some speed bumps along the way, kept with it. I ended up finding a job that supports a lot of what I want out of a career: flexibility, a family-owned company, working with down-to-earth people, working with really successful small businesses that I get to learn a lot about their operations, and they teach me not only about small businesses, but get to work on, for a Fortune 20 company too.
I love that. And I love that you shared that story, especially because, I'm only a few years into my career, but not everything goes perfectly all the time. And things happen that you don't expect are going to happen at all. So I think that that's a really good lesson to learn. And I'm glad you've shared that as well, especially when you think that you're die hard going to do one job and you end up in a totally different job. But in hindsight, you look back and it's been great so far. So thank you for sharing that. Zach, thanks again so much for all of your advice and insights. And thanks all for listening today. Please be sure to follow Zach on LinkedIn and listen to the remainder of the Sales Report podcast. You can find us on LinkedIn, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
And if you want anything from me, feel free to shoot me a LinkedIn message. Happy to answer questions about my experience in the sales minor or at Ford Motor Company.